ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Down goes Paul Manafort. Down goes Paul Manafort. Done. He just turned himself into the FBI today. It's amazing. So what happened is last Friday, news broke that special counsel prosecutor Robert Mueller had issued some sealed indictments in the investigation that began with Russian hacking, right? But actually turned into a real investigation into financial crimes as well as collusion. And so when news of that broke, everybody's like, oh my God, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Like, is it Michael Flynn? Is it Paul Manafort? Obviously, he was one of the ones considered. Like, who is it? Well, we have our answer. We know who it is. It is indeed Paul Manafort. According to the New York Times, it's not just Manafort. It's both him and his former business associate, Ric Gates. Now, Gates and Manafort earlier today were told to surrender, and they did later on. They both turned themselves into the FBI. Now, Gates, a little bit of information on him, if you don't know who he is, because I didn't know who he was, okay? But apparently he's been a longtime protege and junior partner of Mr. Manafort. His name appears on documents linked to companies that Mr. Manafort's firm set up in Cyprus to receive payments from politicians and business people in Eastern Europe, according to records reviewed by the New York Times. Now, let's get to the charges, right? And by the way, those companies that they set up in Cyprus, yeah, not so legal. Money laundering, of course. Now, the charges are, well, first of all, both Manafort and Gates have been charged in a 12-count indictment with conspiracy against the United States. Conspiracy to launder money and making false statements, also being an unregistered agent of a foreign principal, false and misleading FARA statements. That's, of course, not registering as a lobbyist when you're a foreign lobbyist. False statements, and 7 counts of failure to file reports of foreign bank and financial accounts. So that's the full list of charges. Wow. Now, these charges come from prosecutors that have been probing Manafort's work as a political consultant in Ukraine. Now, when he was working in Ukraine, what he was doing is that he was advising a Russian-friendly political party for years before his work with Trump. So, you know, he was working on behalf of the Party of Regions, which, like I said, the leader was Viktor Yanukovych. Yanukovych, friendly with Russia, had to leave, of course, during the whole shakeup in Ukraine. So he was lobbying the United States on behalf of that country. Now, that's fine. I mean, according to our laws, that's fine. That's not illegal. But then he's like, you know what? I don't really like the paperwork on this, so I'm just not going to file as a lobbyist. But apparently, in addition to that, he was apparently doing some other shady shit as well. So, the prosecutors have been examining Manafort's personal finances to find that corruption and exploring possible violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, possible failure to register foreign bank accounts and related tax violations, according to a person familiar with the case. So there's the charges. Very interesting. Now, when this broke on Friday, my first thought was, oh, it's Paul Manafort. Now, I did some reporting before where it's like, okay, here's what they're doing. They're putting screws to Manafort. Some people are in the White House are getting very, very nervous, suggesting that Paul Manafort actually knows something. So it made sense for Robert Mueller to go and target his efforts on, okay, let's find some financial crimes or some sort of misdeeds going on with Paul Manafort. We'll hit him with it, and then we'll offer a plea deal. And in exchange for any information, which would suggest that Donald Trump might have colluded with, the Russian government in order to have them do propaganda on his behalf, as we've seen during the election. Again, we don't know if the existence of that deal, but this is possibly a step of getting Manafort to flip. That's why it's important. Now, that was the second reason I was going to mention why they went after Manafort. The first one's obviously because the dude is shady. Okay? Again, failed to register as a foreign lobbyist. Can't do that. Then once he got caught, he retroactively registered. That's always a good sign. I mentioned Viktor Yanukovych. And he was also there, of course, during the meeting with the Russian lawyer, along with Michael Flynn and Donald Trump Jr. Remember that whole thing is like, oh, this Russian lawyer has got dirt on Hillary Clinton during the campaign. So, you know, they send the email. There's, you know, emails going around. And Donald Jr., he's like, if it is what you say it is, I love it. I jump on it. Yes, of course, I would love to go and get incriminating information from someone who is a foreign national. That counts as a campaign contribution. That's actually illegal under U.S. law. Just saying. But Donald Jr. is like, no. If it is what you say it is, I love it. I love it. I jump in it. Not only that, but Manafort has connections with Oleg Deripaska. That's the Russian aluminum magnate who Manafort allegedly offered to provide with personal briefings about the 2016 election. Deripaska, of course, is one of the billionaires that's connected with Putin, of course. See, all these billionaires have something in common. They gravitate towards centers of power. So if you're a powerful person and you're running a big corporation, whether it be in the United States or Russia, because they kind of run the same, Russia's kind of a more extreme version of what the predatory capitalism that's happening right now in the United States. And that's kind of an important distinction here. An important point to bring up. Because Russia is worse when it comes to the corruption than the United States is. And we're already really bad. Okay? So all these people, with all these big businesses, they got to be connected with the president, or else they're not going to actually be able to do business. So you have all these connections, and Deripaska has got his connection. Manafort's got a connection to Deripaska. And it's possible some information and maybe some meetings might have been planned. Now, okay, so let me stop for a second before I go on with Deripaska, by the way, and my explanation. So, you know, I was thinking earlier, like, the United States has meddled in other elections. There's no doubt about that, right? Now, did Russia meddle in our election? I do believe so. Yes, I think it's definitely my thought that, yes, they did. They did. Now, you can go on and talk about how I believe they did propaganda, Twitter bots, stuff like that, right? So the question is, why would you want to do that? Well, I think it's pretty obvious why you would want to do that. Like I said before, America's wanted to do that. But it's not because, like, oh, the Russians are just naturally bad people and they're terrible and they're evil. They're looking to overthrow our democracy. Are you kidding me? No. The number one reason why Russia wanted to influence the election is because of the money. Follow the money, right? And I don't know if I hear a lot of other people that are actually talking about this and talking about the reason that any country would want to meddle in the other affairs of another country. You just got to go look and go back and look at why the United States has meddled in countries. Our big corporations are like, hey, there's a natural resource in this country that I would love to exploit. Iran. I would love to exploit natural resources there. Iraq, right? We would love to exploit your natural resources. Oil. There's even, there are places in South America where our corporations are like, we're mad that you nationalize your bananas, so here, let's have some freedom. That's why they literally call them banana republics. Okay, so now obviously Russia's like, they're not going to take us over, right? That's stupid. But their corporations have a vested interest in doing business with the largest economy in the world. Our corporations also have a vested interest in doing business with a natural gas and oil-rich state. Now, that's not evidence of a deal, but look, that's one of the reasons I think Putin is very, very interested in saying, hey, you know what, let's swing the election. Let's go and donate to, first of all, what is it? Now I'm forgetting his name. Podesta, Tony Podesta, right? Let's do the lobbying thing with Tony Podesta. And then try and, you know, have some people give money to the Clinton Foundation. So let's go and throw money at that side. Then let's throw money at the Trump side. Whoever wins, we're going to try and get an in for our corporations to do business. Again, I believe this is all about the money. Okay. So back to this billionaire, Deripaska, right? Manafort had a contract with Deripaska worth $10 million to build a hotel. Now, building a hotel, not a problem, right? It is a problem, though, if you're going to use it to launder money. Now, that deal supposedly fell through. By 2014, Deripaska had filed a petition in a Cayman Islands court accusing Manafort and Gates of taking $19 million intended for investment and failing to account for the funds or return it to them. So, now that's kind of weird, right? So what Manafort did is that he emailed a Russian colleague of his, which then emailed Deripaska with the offer to provide personal briefings about the 2016 election. That's weird because they had a little bit of a falling out. But perhaps that might have been maybe an olive branch, maybe an attempt to mend fences. I don't know. And even if Deripaska refused the offer or never had it, it never made it to his desk, as he claims, like, oh, offer, I didn't get any offer from Paul Manafort. What are you talking about? Well, it's another example of somebody in the Trump campaign being very, very open to colluding with foreign nationals on the election. So that's kind of important. And again, the first reason that I mentioned they want Manafort is that, look, if anybody knows or could have even helped facilitate a deal between Donald Trump and the Russian government, or even billionaires connected to the Russian government, then that would be Paul Manafort. He would have the connections in place. So these charges could get Paul Manafort, I mean, they're serious enough to get him to talk and to work together with the Mueller investigation. And I think that's what Robert Mueller was hoping for, that either Gates or Manafort, if they know of such a deal, if it even exists, will eventually flip and tell Mueller about it. Now, the other implication here is political, right? Anybody connected to Russia or the Trump circle, and there's a lot of people, a couple of them, Michael Flynn, Carter Page, for example, well, now they're going to be on notice. Robert Mueller's not fucking around. So he's coming in there and he's dropping bombs. And we're going to see, after a while, who gets hit and who's left when the smoke clears. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.